Welcome to the Bougie Baldie Podcast with your host, Kellie Rhymes.
Hey, welcome to another episode of the Bougie Baldie Podcast. Today I have another special guest. Her name is Qawnana Lee, all right? And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about Qawnana in just a moment. But for those who are new to the Bougie Baldie Podcast, hey, my name is Kellie. I'm a women's hair loss support and authenticity coach and a TV producer. Yes, I am producing the Bougie Baldie Show, and I'll tell you guys more about that later. But realistically, I help women go from insecure to confident when it comes to their hair loss. A lot of times when women are experiencing hair loss, they feel a lot of different emotions, and it can be very draining emotionally and mentally. So I help you get past that and help you move into a good place for you to make decisions in regards to your hair loss and what will make you feel good moving forward, because you have a life to live and we have to make sure you get back to living that life. All right. So let's get into Miss Qawnana Lee, okay? She is a four-time cancer survivor who has recently been diagnosed with alopecia due to her cancer medications. She's a retired professional bodybuilder and bodybuilder coach and a Army vet currently earning her degree in applied behavior science. Welcome, Qawnana.
You so much. Thank you for having me. This is definitely an honor. I feel very humbled and grateful to be here, especially since this is actually my 3-year anniversary from breast cancer. I'm actually 3 years breast cancer free as of the 20th of this month. So this interview could not have come at a better time.
Yes, we gotta clap it up for you.
Yeah.
Clap it up. Yes,
Thank you.
you are a
Thank you.
survivor, and not only just one time. You said 4 times.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh
4
my
times.
God, we're gonna get into it because we have to know what happened, what you were going through, and all of those good things. Okay. All right.
Okay.
So let's start with just talking about, of course, what we were just mentioning, you being a survivor, because that's an incredible and inspiring thing. So can you share a little bit about your journey with cancer, what types of cancer you battled, and what kept you going forward and moving through those difficult times?
Sure. So my first cancer diagnosis was at 20 years old. I'll be 47 this year. So if that gives you kind of a timeline on how long the journey has been,
Mm-hmm.
I have had endometrial cancer, ovarian cancer, colon cancer, and breast cancer.
Wow.
Yes,
Wow.
with breast cancer being the most recent.
Mm-hmm.
I got diagnosed. It was ironic because I was married,
Mm-hmm.
and I was married for over 20 years. And I left that marriage right at the height of COVID. So I left, and then like the world shut down. And from 2020 to 2022, I was really kind of redefining life or trying to figure out what life was going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
I just bought a new home. I just got into a business partnership. And then I'd actually also come out of retirement for bodybuilding. So I had been retired for 10 years, and I had decided to come out of retirement because I wanted to know what it felt like to compete without raising a family and, some of the sacrifices that I had to make
Mm-hmm.
when I was competing in the past. Well, 6 weeks before the competition, I got the diagnosis. Um, and ironically, I'd just taken a vacation the month before I felt the lump myself. I'd already had a mammogram, and
Okay.
nothing showed up on the mammogram. And a month later, the day after I came home from vacation, which was actually literally New Year's Day, I actually
Mhm.
found the lump. So it just was a speeding train from that point, and I actually still competed anyway. And then I knew that I was officially retiring for sure at that point. So I've been again retired for the second time for the past 3 years. But you asked me kind of like what has that journey been like? It's
Mhm.
been very complex. Um, you know, you're not supposed to be in fight or flight all the time.
Right.
And well, you are when you're dealing with any kind of illness, specifically any form of cancer. And typically, when you hear the word cancer, a lot of people immediately think it's a death sentence, and it can be, and it has, it has taken some of the best of them out of here already, right?
Yeah.
And we don't really know we don't know why some people survive and some people don't. So, the journey for me has been interesting, has been emotionally interesting because I have dealt with like survivor's guilt, and
Mhm.
I have dealt with the stages of grief because you do go through the stages of grief, and there is no time limit on how long you grieve. So if you multiply that by four, um, and every time I've gotten a diagnosis, I've had to actually go back and relive the previous diagnosis. And
Mhm.
I've had, I've questioned myself on, am I taking good care of myself? I mean, again, I was a professional bodybuilder. So health and
Right.
wellness is my background, and it had
Yeah.
been for a long time. And people would say, out of all the people on the planet to be, stricken with cancer multiple times, you're the last person we think of. And I felt the same way.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, the only thing that I recognized that I was in control of was my attitude.
Mhm. Yeah.
And what kept me going, because I was 20 the first time, I hadn't had my daughter yet. So that was the other challenge, is that if I was going to become a mom
Right.
biologically, I
Mhm.
needed to make that decision right then and there.
Okay.
And I wasn't ready because, I was new in my career, I was new in my marriage, I was new to just all of the shifts and adjustments to becoming an adult. But that
Mhm.
was my only opportunity to make that decision. So not only did I deal with the diagnosis very early on at a young adult age, but I also had to choose to become a mom. And when I got married, I also inherited a bonus baby. And
Okay.
so they became my why. They
Mhm.
became my why because at that moment I couldn't do it for myself. I was just so confused and just kind of questioned at life in general, and
Mhm.
nothing really made sense to me. So I had these two little human beings that relied on me, and they were pretty much the motivation to to keep going from the beginning. And truth be
Okay.
told, I mean, they're adults,
Mhm.
but they're still a part of my why, but they were my only why at first, and now they're a part of my why. So that I would say is the difference.
Okay. Now, okay, I want to kind of go back and just do some follow-up questions to some of the things you said, or just maybe comments, because I know I've heard about people who have received a cancer diagnosis and they were like very healthy eaters, very clean eaters or vegans. And like you said, bodybuilders are very healthy people. And it has always baffled me like, and I understand that the cancer gene is in all of us. It just gets activated some type of way. I don't, know that part, but I do understand that part. But it just amazes me, like when you can do everything right and still, have these diagnoses. And it's just very unfortunate that cancer is just it's such a beast. It's like
Yeah.
it affects so many people in so many different ways.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I hope eventually there's something that can come about that can help decrease the amount of diagnosis. I mean, I don't know if there's ever really going to be a cure per se, but maybe
Right.
something that can develop and create that could decrease the amount of cases, because it just seems like
Yeah.
it just pops up everywhere, and it affects everybody's life. Even if you have never had cancer, you know somebody or several people who have, right?
Yep, yep, yep. Well, so to kind of touch on what you said with, about not knowing whether or not you could have a cure, will ever have a cure, but if there's kind of a way to kind of minimize or eliminate so many cases, there's a part of me that wants to say that nutrition could really help that.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, in the United States, we live in a country where everything is toxic.
Yep.
Everything is toxic, even the most organic, healthy foods. Like you said, there are people, again, I was a bodybuilder coach, and leading up to my diagnosis, I had two of my clients who actually also were bodybuilders, and they also got breast cancer diagnosis. So even before my diagnosis, I had already had a front row seat to quite a few of my very close friends or clients or colleagues who had gone through this diagnosis. So I don't want to say I was almost a pro, but I was almost like a pro at this point, because I had been navigating through with so many of these women. And a lot of them had really, really great, healthy lifestyles. But I will tell you, between the toxicity in our soil and just the air and everything, and then our level of stress, I don't know that we will ever successfully get to a point where we won't hear about so many cases.
Yeah.
Until we can get to a place as a nation, as a country, where we're not dealing with so much chaos and sitting in that fight or flight, because stress does also feed cancer.
Yeah.
And although I sat in this place of confusion in my 20s, I also recognized, like, I came from a very, very chaotic childhood. We did not have the best nutrition because we were poor. And even though I was an athlete, and I've been an athlete since I was 5. That probably saved my life or prolonged my life, but it didn't change the fact that, like you said, we all have cancer cells sitting idle or dormant in our bodies. And all it takes is the right trigger to flip on the light switch.
Yeah.
My first cancer was actually a result of contracting an HPV virus,
Okay.
and not being notified in enough time to have myself checked. It wasn't until I started dealing with some extreme complications that led me to having extensive testing and having all these things done. Had I known soon enough, then maybe I would have had the opportunity to maybe combat that. But the reality of it is that I think that some form of cancer would have probably shown up in my life anyway, because again, I was a on the go person. My stress level was high. I kind of fed off of that, like being level headed, or I won't say level headed, but what I will say is, like, just kind of being chill. That wasn't something that I did. I didn't grow up that way. It wasn't a learned behavior. I won't say negative energy, but very high powered, very high strung, very dominant energy surrounding me all the time. And I think it was just a matter of time for me. And it took, literally all these years of trying to unlearn and relearn how to sit in a place of solace, learn how to relax, learn how to meditate, learn how to deep breathe, learn how to, but yeah, I mean, I want to say that I want to remain hopeful, though, that one day, and maybe it won't be in our lifetime. That's the thing I appreciate the most about science and these researchers and these professors that are doing all this research. Hopefully we can find something, because it is running rampant, especially breast cancer in particular is running rampant, especially in the African American community. Black women right now are we're actually, not only are we catching it at a rapid pace, but it is actually more severe for us. So I'm hoping.
So why is it more severe for us? Do you know?
I don't know, but my theory is that it has a lot to do with kind of some of the stuff that I mentioned earlier,
The
our
food
stress level,
and
our
stress.
food. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. We are navigating through life on a different train track than
Mm-hmm.
everyone else.
Yeah.
And our train track doesn't have any brakes on it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Until
We're
we actually manually have to pull those brakes or
Yep,
something happens
yep,
to us that causes us
yep.
to break, then
And
it's
then the
like that's the
train
only
usually
time.
derails. Yes.
Yep.
And
Yep.
then the train usually derails. So yeah, so unfortunately, we we as Black women and women of color in general, we carry the weight of the world on our backs and our shoulders, and we balance the basket on our heads, and then we carry some in our arms, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's my theory. But it is actually true. Like the data does present itself to be that Black women in particular are not only getting breast cancer at a very rapid pace, but our mortality rate is a little higher. And the way we navigate through breast cancer has been slightly more challenging. There are some other reasons that I actually believe as well. And I think some of it is we don't necessarily always get the same care.
True. True. I definitely know that from experience.
Me too. That's why I
Um,
brought it up.
yeah, I actually had to go. I didn't have to, but I made a decision to go to a whole nother country to have a surgery because I did not trust having surgery here in the United States as a Black woman.
I
It
can
was,
understand that.
yeah, so I definitely agree and have had some experiences.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that. We're gonna kind of move forward a little bit, and I want to talk about your background as a
Okay.
professional bodybuilder and an Army veteran. Okay,
Sure.
you have a very diverse background, and now you're studying applied behavior science.
Yes.
So, what led you from one path to the next?
Well, I'll start with the Army. I joined the Army when I was 17. A lot of it was because, again, I grew up poor. Like,
Hmm.
so my mom didn't have college money. And unfortunately, I didn't get the luxury of having counselors and academic professionals like sit me down and talk to me about maybe my options for college. Um, and I always knew I wanted to go to college. It was a personal requirement for me my entire life. It had nothing to do with what I wanted to do for a living, and it had nothing to do with wanting to impress anybody. For me, it was like our ancestors bled hard for us to
Hmm.
have this opportunity. Um, just like with voting, and it's like, why not do it when my ancestors bled hard for this
Yeah.
opportunity? And also as a woman, we weren't allowed to do stuff, so why not take advantage of this opportunity that my ancestors fought hard for?
Hmm.
So I knew, because again, I did get to play sports, and that structure and that stability was really kind of a saving grace for me. And
Hmm.
I knew coming out of high school that although my mom didn't have the finances and the resources to send me to college, I needed something more than just the traditional job. And I wanted to do something that was kind of bigger than myself. So I actually joined the Army.
Okay.
I served for 8 years.
Okay. Thank you for your
Actually,
service.
thank you. Thank you. And I actually did also raise a family at the same time. I actually married the guy that I went to the senior prom with, and he joined the Marine Corps.
Okay.
And so we actually moved to the DMV area,
Hmm.
and we raised a family here. And what happened was with bodybuilding, when I was an athlete in school, bodybuilding was really big in my community because the Arnold Classic was right in my backyard. I'm from Columbus, Ohio,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where the Arnold Classic is held.
Okay.
I was really, really fascinated with the human body in general. Like, I noticed that my body was making major changes just from being a track and field athlete. And when I started playing around, like I purposely got a job at like a bagel shop so that I could eat certain foods. And I noticed that my body was changing. And then we started lifting weights with the football players and my body started changing. And
Mhm.
I was stacked. I had muscle. I was a powerhouse in high
Okay.
school. And so I was
Okay.
always fascinated by that. And I started following bodybuilding. And back then, there were not a lot of categories in bodybuilding. It was just, bodybuilding, men and women's bodybuilding, and then like fitness.
Okay.
But so originally, I wanted to be a female bodybuilder.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember senior year, my classmates writing in my book, like, I can't wait to see you on the big stage. You're going to be a great bodybuilder. And I'll be like, I can't wait to see you at ESPN and just all these things.
Uh-huh.
And then that didn't happen. I joined the army. I got married. I started a life, like life started lifing.
Mm-hmm.
And fast forward to my baby sister going into her senior year of high school. I brought her here to the DMV area, and I took her in at the end of her midway through her junior year, and I took over guardianship. And we were going down memory lane and just having nostalgic moments. And she started reading through my yearbook,
Okay.
and I just kept hearing her say, "I can't wait to see you on the bodybuilding stage. I can't wait." And I
Mm-hmm.
looked at her and I said, "I haven't done what I said I was going to do." And
Okay.
that's something that I have always done. If I say I'm going to do something, I do it.
Right.
Even if it didn't necessarily work out the way I thought it would, I at least do what I said I was going to do. And I just looked at her very calmly and I said, I didn't do what I said I was going to do. I got to do that. So
Mm-hmm.
20 years ago, I stepped on stage for the first time and placed in
Okay.
the top 5, and I was hooked.
Okay.
I was it was like and let me tell you, it's a funny story because I actually just did a 20-year reunion podcast with a woman that I shared the stage with for the first time. And
Okay.
we both talk about how we had no business being on that stage, but we had all this confidence and all this stuff and technology and the internet, and just so much is so different about the industry now. And back then we didn't have any of that stuff, which made it so fun because
Mm-hmm.
we didn't have all this stuff. But I was like, we had no business being up there, but I had confidence. But I had confidence because I had been an athlete my entire life. I was on the dance team, I was on the track team, I was on, right. So you have to have this confidence. You have to, even if you have to like bring an alter ego to
Mm-hmm.
represent you, you have to have confidence. And I had that. So I was like, that's one thing I can control is my attitude. I can't control what the judges say, what they think
Right.
I look like, or any of that. And so a month later, I got back on stage again and I placed second. And I put the pictures next to each other, and they
Mm-hmm.
were two different people. And it was so I'm a geek. I'm a science geek. My daughter calls me a nerd all the time. Like she calls me big brain.
Uh-huh.
But my big brain turned on and I was like, oh, okay. So let's see what we can do with this. And then I turned pro 2 years later and competed as a pro. I started coaching, I started judging, I promoted shows, like any and everything you can do in the bodybuilding industry in the natural arena. I was
Mhm.
involved in all of that.
Okay.
And yeah. And so it was one of those things where, again, I joined the army because I wanted to make sure that I had an opportunity to kind of grow up and not struggle too much. And
Mm-hmm.
then becoming a bodybuilder was really just about fulfilling a dream and fulfilling a promise to myself that I didn't keep my word on. And I didn't know that it was going to take off and be 20 years later.
Mm-hmm.
And it was going to evolve into all this other stuff. Like I became a professional makeup artist. I started my own business, like all these things that just came out of me choosing to step on stage. And it was an amazing ride. And it is the reason why I was able to detect the other three cancers that came along because I was
Really?
so in tune with my body.
Uh-huh.
And when the doctors would be like, oh, it's probably nothing. No, 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 no. This is what we need to do.
Uh-huh.
And if you can't do it, it's fine. I'll find somebody who can. You become so in tune with your body. You have to learn so much about your physical space when you get into a sport like bodybuilding. You cannot ignore the signs. Your body won't let you,
Okay.
so it just one thing led to another, led to another, led to another. And then thirdly, getting involved in applied behavioral science has a multitude of reasons. I have a family history. I don't personally have autism spectrum disorder or anything like that.
Okay.
But I have an extensive family history of different types of mental health challenges.
Okay.
And for me, it was about awareness. It was about understanding, but also in this current climate, there's a lot of I want to use the word ignorance. There's a
Yes.
lot of ignorance and stigma behind mental health in
Mm-hmm.
general, especially with women, menopausal women, and Black women.
Yep.
Bringing it up again,
Yep.
menopausal women and Black women, and immigrant women in general. And it's just, we need more people who are willing to do the work, to do the research, to do the understanding, to do the advocating, and to give people permission, like you said, for your business, to give people permission to sit in their authenticity and be
Right.
unapologetic about the space that they're sitting in.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I've always been on a quest to learn more about myself. But my purpose for choosing to go this route, as soon as you tell people that you want to study this, they immediately think you want to be a therapist. And I'm like, and if I do, that's my business too, right? Like that's
Right.
fine. But what my goal is to we call it lifespan.
Mm-hmm.
So I've had people ask me, well, what area do you want to work in? Because a lot about applied behavioral analysis usually starts with children.
Okay.
It usually starts with children, but you can work in organizational capacities. You can work with the geriatric population, especially people who are dealing with different stages of dementia and Alzheimer's.
Right.
Um, but you know what category is being ignored is the middle-aged adult.
Really?
And yes, not only the middle-aged adult, but when you deal with the adolescent or the children, like if you go into that area,
Mm-hmm.
you usually stop working with them by the time they turn 18.
Right.
Well, we already know the human brain is not done developing until 25.
Uh-huh.
So from 18 to 25, what's happening?
Yeah.
All kinds of things. So for me, I think when I'm ready to narrow it down and I'm done with all the educational components, I think that I want to really play around in the sandbox with the 18-year-olds
Mm-hmm.
all the way up to geriatric, because there's still mental development that's happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you've ever heard the saying, but when you get older, you actually reverse back to childhood.
Yes.
And
Yes.
whoever you were as a kid is probably who you're going to be when you, right?
Yes, I have heard it. I've
Oh,
seen it.
yes, me
I've
too.
experienced it with my own family.
Yes, me too. So I'm going to study behavioral now. My goal is to aim to get board certified as a behavioral analyst. I'm sorry, but
Mhm.
also once I'm done with my degree in applied behavioral science, I haven't decided yet if I'm going to do graduate level there too, or veer off into psychology so that I can choose maybe one day to do my license to do
Mhm.
social work, or be a licensed therapist, so I can combine them together, and then bring in the third component, which is health and wellness, because I have 25 years of health and wellness and nutrition under my belt. I'm not going to just put that on ice just because I'm not a bodybuilding coach anymore. But I'd like to call it the triangle if I can get the triangle effect. I think that's what's going to make me stand out, because there are a sea of mental health professionals out here. Not that they're not all needed, because Lord knows we need them all. But when you are in such a large sea of people, you have to have a niche. You have to have like what makes you special, what makes you stand out from the crowd.
Right.
So that was why I decided to go this route. I've put my body through so much as a professional athlete and as an amateur athlete my entire life. I was ready to challenge my mind just as intensely as I have my body. And bodybuilding has evolved in a way where I'm going to say I don't love it anymore, but I kind of don't. Just because it's just different, right? And I appreciate the evolution of it, but I also got to a point where it wasn't challenging me anymore. Like it was just becoming too easy for me. And I was just like, my brain is not stimulated anymore, and I need that stimulation. And also the last part of it is like, this is the generational wealth that I'm trying to pass down. Like everybody else can pass down money to their family, and that's fine. And I'll do that too. But I want to pass down something more meaningful, something more impactful, right? Something that's going to really undo some of the generational stuff that we've had to carry all these years.
Yeah. And one interesting point that you make about working with a geriatric as far as the mental health concern. I've kind of dabbled just with working with that group of people in the medical wise part or medical side of it. And a lot of them go through anxiety, depression. I think we don't think about, like, when you get older and you're so used to doing everything yourself and taking care of yourself, and then all of a sudden you're in a position where you can't take care of yourself. You have to rely on other people. That is very hard. I know it would be hard for me because I'm very independent. So I know it's hard. And that group of people tend to suffer from depression because of those types of things and anxiety.
And they
then on
decline
top of
very
that,
rapidly.
on top of that, they have PTSD from things they've experienced in their lives. Like, it's a lot going on. Just like we have a lot going on in ourselves mentally. It doesn't stop when you get 90 something years old. It continues and it gets worse.
I remember when my grandfather passed away. He was in his late 80s, and I remember one time we were having a conversation, and he was sharing his childhood story with me. And in his late 80s, I was having a conversation with a 7-year-old little boy. And my heart broke when he passed. I literally said, an 87-year-old man, right? Physically, but 7-year-old died because he never really got to heal from those wounds. And I don't know that we would ever truly be able to fully heal from all of our wounds, because again, it's just so layered, and we're also carrying around the DNA of our ancestors and all their trauma too. But while you're here, I call it lifelong work. And I think it's important. And I think that because I too actually worked in the senior community in two different capacities. One was actually post-rehabilitation. And then the other side was business operations, which was actually recently. And I got a chance to really analyze and watch these people. And every month, we would have a meeting where we would invite the new residents to come in, and we'd introduce and let them share their story. And after about 6 months of doing that, the narrative was the same. The energy was the same. There was sadness, there was depression, there was anger, there was confusion. My kids made me come here. People were feeling like they were losing, even though it was independent living, they were feeling like they lost their sense of independence. I had to sell my house. My spouse passed away, and my kids said that I couldn't live in the house anymore. It was too much for me to manage. And I think that in this generation, I don't know how old you are, but I'm a Gen Xer.
And I'm a Gen X. I'm 44.
Okay. So I'll be 47 this year. I think it's important for us Gen Xers to be proactive about what we can do, not just now, like we're unpacking all the stuff and we're dealing with the kids and dealing with the aging parents and all that, but showing up for ourselves and making sure that we're constantly putting into our own emotional, spiritual health banks,
Yep.
so that when we are our parents' ages, we are truly embracing the new life and feeling liberated, but also still feeling relevant
Mm-hmm.
and present, because that's what I'm seeing. And the depression rate and the suicide rate is really high in the senior community,
Yes.
especially if they've outlived all their loved ones and
Mm-hmm.
all their friends. They don't want to make new friends. They want
Yeah.
the ones they had.
Yep.
And they're angry with their family because they feel like their families have abandoned them and just continue to live life without them. And so, again, what I'm doing in applied behavioral science and psychology and neuroscience and all these things, I'm taking all a bit and pieces of all these things, and I'm trying to create something beautiful for my family. We have conversations often about generational living and family compounds and what we can all bring to the table for each other. And for me, it's going to be knowledge and history and education. And, we're so tech savvy these days that, getting back to the earth and learning how to farm and grow our own veggies and stuff. And, because cancer is now a family history thing for
Mm-hmm.
us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Teaching my family and staying consistent with reminding them that we have to be good to ourselves and showing up for ourselves. And so I'm not really doing this because I want the accolades or I need somebody to say, "Oh, you're so smart, good job," and all this stuff. No, this is how I'm pouring into my future. This is how I'm pouring into the future grandchildren, and wanting my kids to even know, like, all right, my mom holds some weight here. Like, we're not going to try to do this thing called life without her, because like we'd be crazy not to. So this is me showing them, like, I'm not asking you. So I have this favorite saying, and I said it to the kids their entire childhood so much, and they loved it so much that they asked that we share a tattoo. And it's go be amazing.
Aw.
So when I hit my 1 year anniversary of breast cancer, being breast cancer free, that was how we went to celebrate. We went and got these tattoos, and it's in my handwriting. Go be amazing. And
Oh, that's
basically,
nice.
what that means is whatever amazing means for you,
Mm-hmm.
go be that. Be
Yes.
all in, be a great human being to yourself, be a great human being to the rest of the world. Don't be a terrible human being. If you don't want to be a terrible human being, don't do that.
Right.
And show up for yourself. Whatever it is that you say you want to commit to, do that, but be amazing at it. Give it all you can. Even
Yes.
if the rest of the world don't think that, you gave it all you can and they think it's mediocre, as long as you know that you gave it all you can, that's you being amazing.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's so beautiful on so many levels. The first of all, the compound, I definitely have had those ideas. I've talked to friends about it. Like, even if you don't have family who can do it with you, get your good friends who can do it with you. Like
Yep.
having a
Yep.
compound, staying together, taking care of each other, supporting each other, that like
Yep.
is very much so ideal, especially when it's intergenerational. That makes it
Yep.
even better, because
Yep.
the grandkids get to see grandma or possibly great grandma, and they're all
Mm-hmm.
still connected. And these days, we are just not connected. I talk about this with all the time with my friends. Like, we're just not connected like we used to be when we were younger. We used to go over
Mm-hmm.
people's houses and just
Mm-hmm.
hang out or stop by. Hi,
Mm-hmm.
how you doing? And like
Mm-hmm.
really have a group of people, a group of family members just in a house on a random Sunday, just
On a
hanging
random
out, talking
Sunday.
and playing games or doing whatever, right? So
Yeah.
getting back to that is very important. And also that tattoo, I love it. And the fact
Thank
that your
you.
kids said they had such an amazing childhood and that's what, kind of made them or inspired you guys to do it. That is beautiful. And that says a lot about you.
Oh, thank you. You know what? Let me tell you, I've lived many lives. I've done a lot of things. And I'll be honest with you, if my sister don't remind me what I did, 9 times out of 10, I don't remember a lot of the stuff that I've done. The
Mm-hmm.
thing that I care about the most, though, is being a mom to those two human beings. Like, that was the one thing I was like, you know what? I don't want to be perfect at anything, and I don't want to be a perfect parent either. I just want to know that I gave it my all. Like, and they know that and they feel that. I've never tried to be perfect around them. I'm very authentic in who I am. And just because my son is almost 30, he'll be 29 this year. My daughter just turned 25. I'm still very much involved in their lives and in the communicative way and the mentor way and even just showing them vulnerability and transparency about where I sit in my life so that they can have permission to do the same.
Yes.
We grew up with parents who were very hush hush about what was happening in their lives. And also I wanted my ex-husband and I both wanted our kids to just be kids. We did not expect for them to be anything other than kids. And when we went through our struggles, that wasn't their problem.
Right.
Their problem was those grades. Go to school and don't be out here acting like you have no home training. And and be on your best behavior. That's it. That's it. And so I'm really, really grateful for my relationship with my two young adults. And I'm just always so excited. And the older I get, my daughter said, the older I get, the more emotional I get. But I think also I've just done so much work on myself. I grew up, we weren't allowed to show emotion. We weren't allowed to be vulnerable. It was a survival mechanism. Like if you're vulnerable and you're emotional, then your guards are down and anything can happen. And so my kids gave me freedom and permission to cry and to laugh and to, and I'm like you, I'm big on recognizing birthdays and I don't let them not recognize their birthdays. And I definitely recognize all of mine. Because I'm not going to not do that. And, I'm the one that's like, let's have family time. And, I don't care that we don't celebrate 4th of July. This is an opportunity and an excuse to get together as a family and let's play games and let's, so I'm really big on that, really, really big on that. And I just think we need to get back to the basics on some stuff.
Yes, we do.
And a lot of all of this is also, again, coming from me, just really recognizing how much energy flowed through. I'm a petite person. I'm not a big girl by any means, but the amount of energy that flowed through me my entire life. And I just didn't have anybody there to give me permission to slow down and to breathe and to, I got you. What are we doing? I got you. I'm beside you.
Yeah.
And so for me, trying to undo all that, allowing my family to show up for me through some of these challenging times, letting my friends show up and just giving myself grace. Like I had to learn all of that so that I can teach it because what's the other thing? We were told to do stuff, do what I say, not as I do. Do what you're told. I didn't want to be that parent and that grandparent. I wanted to be able to give this advice to the kids and the grands when I get them. And they're like, you know what? I remember her doing this. I remember her being in this situation. And she is practicing what she preaches. I'm not going to ask them to do something that I'm not willing to do myself. And so it's so funny, we all, when we grow up, when we're kids, we're like, when I grow up, I want to do all the things that I want to, and none of that happens.
Yeah. Are you a woman struggling with hair loss, feeling unattractive and insecure? At Limitless Mindset Coaching, we understand the emotional toll that hair loss can take. In just 90 days, we help you transform from feeling lost and embarrassed to radiating with confidence and joy. Imagine building your self-esteem, discovering the perfect camouflage technique to cover up your hair loss, and receiving tips and tricks that can help you with your hair loss and embrace the new you while connecting with a supportive community of women just like you. Say goodbye to those negative emotions and hello to a positive mindset. Picture vibrant new relationships, walking through the room with your head held high, participating in social events and activities again, and living a life filled with happiness. Are you ready to take that first step? Well, visit www.limitlessmindsetcoach.com or click the link in the description today and let's embark on this empowering journey together.
Thank you for watching the Bougie Baldie Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe